Hi everyone, and welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans on this Wednesday, February 6, 2013. This is the show that gives you up-to-date information on all the movie news and gives you insight into what it really means. I'm your host, Gigi Dubois, and joining me today is AMC Movie News Senior Editor John Campea. Hello.
Hello, Gigi. Welcome here.
Thank you. How are you today?
I'm excellent, thank you.
Great. And also joining me today via Skype is Dan Devey from thecinemassource.com. Hi, Dan.
Hello. How's it going, guys?
Great. How are you?
I am doing very well, thank you.
All right, so let's get into our first story of the day. As many of you know, the Marvel film to come after Thor 2 and right before the Avengers is Guardians of the Galaxy, being directed by James Gunn. Up to this point, we haven't heard any official news on casting until now. It's being reported that Parks and Recreation star Chris Pratt, who can currently be seen in Zero Dark 30, is the new leading man for the film and playing the Guardians leader Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord. It's likely that this means Pratt will also be appearing in the Avengers 2. So John, what do you think of Pratt being Star-Lord?
This is completely out of left field. I mean, there have been a lot of names thrown around about who could play Star-Lord. I mean, I said from day one that the guy I really wanted to see play Star-Lord was Nathan Fillion. He's worked with James Gunn terrifically in the past on Slither. He just seems to be right for the role. Granted, he might be getting a little bit old for the role, but I still thought he'd be perfect. And I'm torn about this because I really like Chris Pratt. I love Parks and Rec. It is by far my favorite sitcom on television today. Yeah. And his character is one of my favorites. He's so great. And, you know, it was a little odd seeing him in Zero Dark 30 because all I could see was his Parks and Recreation character, no matter how hard I tried. Exactly. And for those of you who watch Parks and Rec, every once in a while, Chris Pratt, his character pretends he's this FBI agent called Detective Macklin or something like that. And it felt like to me, like he was just the guy from Parks and Rec pretending to be Agent Macklin. And that's what it felt like to me. So I love this guy. So you'd think I'd be really thrilled. I don't know if he is leading man material, especially for, let's face it, it's not just going to be Guardians of the Galaxy. Marvel uses their characters often. And that means he's probably going to be in Avengers. And I just don't know if I see him as that leading man. I'm struggling with this. Dan, what do you think? Am I being crazy or what do you think?
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. When I read that, I thought, really? Why? But I also, in seeing him in Zero Dark 30, was amazed because I remember him from his Everwood days. And in Everwood, he was the, hot older brother. And then he became the funny guy who, let's face it, got a little chunky there. And then suddenly he was this warrior in Zero Dark 30. So I think if he's okay with, hopping on the treadmill and having that chef and that personal trainer, I might be able to see it. I think because he is such a good actor and people do like him, I could see it working. It's just the physicality. I think he's going to have to really work his butt off to be able to physically look hard.
I will say this for him. He got, we can find some pictures. I'll see if we can have a picture to throw up online. He got in ridiculous shape for Zero Dark 30. And there are some pictures floating around online of him working out. And he looks fantastic. He looks great. And I ran into him at the after party of Zero Dark 30 at the world premiere. And he was looking good. Of course, he was with his wife, Anna Faris, and he looked great. He did. And then 2 days later, I'm watching Parks and Recreation again, and he's Fat Andy. So it's just weird. It's like, wait a minute, I just saw you 2 days ago, and you were in this incredible shape. So it is really amazing how fast the guy's body appearances go. So I guess it's fair to say we're both kind of iffy on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could go, I really think it could go either way. This could either be an amazing thing that will be looked back on as a stroke of genius, or it could really not be good and he could be recast.
All right.
The 23rd James Bond film Skyfall has officially passed The Dark Knight Rises at the worldwide box office, becoming the 7th highest grossing film of all time. Skyfall's total gross now sits at $1.094 billion, just above The Dark Knight Rises at $1.081 billion. The film received a large bump from the Chinese box office as the film opened there on January 21st. The 6 films that have earned more than Skyfall are The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King at $1.119 billion, Transformers: Dark of the Moon at $1.123 billion, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 at $1.328 billion, Marvel's The Avengers at $1.511 billion, Titanic at $2.185 billion, and Avatar at $2.782 billion. Dan, are you surprised that Skyfall has passed The Dark Knight Rises?
You know, I'm surprised that it passed The Dark Knight. I'm not surprised that it's in the same category with those other films that were mentioned, because let's face it, all of those films, with the exception of Transformers, which is kind of the bane of my existence, that entire series. With the exception of that one film, all the other films mentioned are amazing, blockbuster, crowd-pleasing films that are really smart and really, the scripts were fantastic, acting was great, and just the presentation overall was just fantastic. So I'm not surprised that it's in that company, but I am kind of surprised that it beat The Dark Knight Rises, because I look at that as probably the best comic book adaptation film ever made. And while Skyfall was good, and again, good script, great acting, and it was exciting, you know, pleased the masses, I don't see it as being better than The Dark Knight Rises. But, you know, it fits in there, in that category, I think.
You know, they say, and the old saying is that, look, money does not equal quality. Just because one movie makes more money than another doesn't mean it's better. Except in this situation. Skyfall is a much better film than The Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight Rises was by far the worst of that series. And I have so many problems with that movie I could go on, and yet I actually still really enjoyed it. I still really like The Dark Knight Rises. But, is that film flawed? But I'm shocked. I'm completely shocked. I mean, there's no way. If you could have bet me almost any amount of money at the beginning of last year and said, you know, hey, Campia, I'll bet you a $10,000 that Skyfall will make more money at the box office than The Dark Knight Rises. I would have taken that fool's bet. I would have taken that bet. You could have bet me $100,000, $1 million. I would have taken it, and I would have called you crazy.
$1.5 million.
Yeah, maybe $1.5 billion. I mean, it is crazy. Never saw this coming in a million years. I don't think the die-hardest of Bond fans saw this coming. So yeah, can color me absolutely shocked. I'm thrilled for its success. I agree with Dan for the most part about, look, you look at these huge numbers of these particular movies, and it's nice to see that these are, for the most part, great blockbuster films, fun blockbuster films. Mm-hmm. I may not be thrilled with the third Transformers movie, but be that as it may, for a lot of people, a fun blockbuster film. And so it is kind of neat to see it in that sort of company.
I think also we're going to have a separate show where we talk about The Dark Knight Rises. I'm sorry, not The Dark Knight Rises, The Dark Knight. I should never make that mistake. But yeah, I think a separate episode is in order for The Dark Knight. Oh,
I love The Dark Knight. You will probably agree on most things with The Dark Knight. It's just The Dark Knight Rises. Anyway, what do we got next? Oh, you know what? It is time for Buy and Sell. Folks, this is Buy and Sell, the segment of the show that I blatantly rip off from ESPN's Around the Horn. And here's how basically it works. Gigi has a bunch of other movie news stories in front of her. She's going to read them off to us. And then Dan and I are going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So, Gigi, what do we got?
Well, Disney chairman and CEO Bob Iger has confirmed speculation that they are looking to do a series of Star Wars standalone films that will be independent of the new trilogy and that will focus on specific characters from the overall Star Wars universe. The Disney boss stated, "There has been speculation about some standalone films that are in development. I can confirm to you today that in fact we are working on a few standalone films. Larry Kasdan and Simon Kinberg are both working on films derived from the great Star Wars characters that are not part of the overall saga. We will still plan to make episodes 7, 8, and 9 roughly over a 6-year period of time starting in 2015. There are going to be a few other films released in that time too." John, buy or sell? Star Wars standalone films?
I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to go both. I buy the idea of there being standalone films. We've talked before about this whole rumor going around about maybe Zack Snyder doing a Seven Samurai version of a bunch of, wandering Jedi who help. Love that idea. But I sell it if they're going to go back to old Star Wars characters. If they're going to go back to Yoda, if they're going to go back to Jabba the Hutt, even if they go back to Boba Fett, one of the greatest Star Wars characters ever, but it doesn't matter because I don't want any more prequels. Listen to me closely. Prequels are stupid when it comes to the Star Wars universe. Don't do them. Dan, how about you?
You know what? I'm going to buy it if Episode 7 is done better than Episodes 1, 2, and 3. If 7, 8, and 9 are just 1, 2, and 3 over again, totally sell it, because who cares at that point? But if they do it right, I mean, who wouldn't want to see the roots of, say, Salacious Crumb's relationship with Jabba the Hutt? How did that friendship come to be? Or, the adventures of Admiral Akbar and put like a Silver Lake gay bar twist on the thing. There's so much you could do. There's so many characters. And so if they do it right, then I buy it. If they don't, sell it.
All right. Well, with the Twilight Saga now firmly behind him, Robert Pattinson has recently signed on to star alongside Guy Pearce for the new film, The Rover. The film is set in the Australian desert in a dangerous and damaged near future. Eric Pearce has left everything, everyone, and every semblance of human kindness behind him, where a gang of desperate criminals steal his last possession. Eric sets off on a ruthless mission to track down them, forced along the way to enlist the help of Ray Pattinson, a naive and injured junior member of the gang who was left behind in the chaos of the gang's most recent robbery. Dan, buy or sell Pattinson being able to advance his career post-Twilight?
Believe it or not, I completely buy this. I think a lot of people forget that in 2010, Pattinson starred in a film called Remember Me. That was an amazing drama that he did a fantastic job in. And then in 2011, he did Water for Elephants, which was another great dramatic performance. And I think now that Twilight is finally behind him, he can remind people that he doesn't suck, that he is actually a talented actor, and he can pull off other characters far better than he ever did with that twinkling vampire guy.
All right, I'm actually going to sell this. I think Pattinson, I don't hold Pattinson's performances in as high regard as Dan does, but at the same time, not terrible, not really that bad and showing some promise. However, I think this goes beyond his ability. I think he has acted himself into a box because of the success of Twilight that I think he's going to find it very, very difficult to get that out of people's minds. So it's unfair and it's unfortunate, but for that reason, I sell it.
All right. Well, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 has already begun production in New York City for its May 2nd, 2014 release date, and today Sony Pictures has released an early synopsis of the film. In The Amazing Spider-Man 2, for Peter Parker, Andrew Garfield, life is busy between taking out the bad guys as Spider-Man and spending time with his personal interest, Gwen, Emma Stone. High school graduation couldn't come quickly enough. Peter hasn't forgotten about the promise he made to Gwen's father to protect her by staying away. But that's a promise he just can't keep. Things will change for Peter when a new villain, Electro, Jamie Foxx, emerges, an old friend Harry Osborn, Dan DeHaan, returns, and Peter uncovers new clues about his past. John, buy or sell this synopsis?
I'm going to buy this. I mean, everybody knows I'm very excited. I think The Amazing Spider-Man was better than the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man, so for a lot of reasons. But I'm also really excited to hear them say that it's going to reveal more things about Peter's past. One of the things they've changed in this incarnation of Spider-Man is that there seems to be some secret in Peter's past that connects him maybe to his abilities, maybe to all that. Maybe there's something in his blood. I don't know what it is, but I'm excited to hear they're going to explore it. Dan, how about you?
I'm going to buy it simply for the fact that, well, what else are they going to do? I mean, you can't do the Goblin, you can't do Dr. Octopus, you can't do any of the cool things that have already been done in the Raimi version, which I actually liked better. I know, it's crazy. What else are you going to do? I'll buy it because what else are you going to do?
All right.
Remember the video game-based movie Hitman that starred Timothy Olyphant? Well, it's become announced that they are going to give the game another try by rebooting the franchise. The new star will be Fast and Furious star Paul Walker, and the new title will be Agent 47 and will be written by Skip Woods, who also wrote the first Hitman movie. Dan, buy or sell a Hitman reboot?
I mean, I'll buy it, not for that much money, though. And the only reason that I'm buying it is because this isn't an iconic character. This isn't any, I mean, Hitman, Agent 47, 49, 112. Who knows? Like, and Paul Walker, like, great. You know, who doesn't like seeing Paul Walker on screen? And he can act when he has the right director behind him. And, you know, if it's directed right and it has a decent script, it could be a decent action movie. Nothing more than that. So I'll buy it, but not for that much money.
I'm going to sell this, one, because the universal rule of death taxes, all video game movies suck. Also, the first one was not great. There's not, you know, great narrative there to move to the big screen. And I don't have a lot of faith in Paul Walker. Look, I'm not going to say Paul Walker's bad because he's not. But he's yet to have a role where he can impress me. As an audience member, I have not been impressed by Paul Walker, and so for that reason, I'm going to sell it. But listen, folks, it is time for our mailbag. Every week we ask you guys, well, now it's every day, to write in your questions. You can send your questions to us at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Send those to us, and we'll get to one or two every day. Today, we're going to do two. So Gigi has a couple picked out from the mailbag. So what do we got?
Well, our first letter comes from Anthony T, and he writes, "Hi, I found your channel on YouTube, and I've been a fan ever since. It's great to hear you guys talk about all the movie news daily. My question is, do you predict a Batman cameo in the Man of Steel credits, and who do you think should play the next Dark Knight for the JLA and 2007 reboot?"
No, I don't think we're going to see a cameo appearance in the Man of Steel for a couple reasons. One, Man of Steel's done shooting. They're done. And they have not picked out their new Batman. I mean, they may have intellectually figured out who their next Batman's going to be, but they haven't really picked him out yet. I don't think so. And 2017, 4 years away. So number one, no, I don't think we're going to see a cameo. And if I had to pick somebody now, 4 years away, two guys come to mind. One guy is Armie Hammer, who's going to be the Lone Ranger in the upcoming movie, who, oddly enough, when they tried to get a Justice League movie going a bunch of years ago, Armie Hammer was going to be Bruce Wayne / Batman in that, oddly enough, before he ever became big in the Social Network. The other guy I would go with, after seeing Bullet to the Head, and Dan knows where I'm going with this, I want to see Jason Momoa. I want to see Jason Momoa as Batman. I think he's huge. He's physical. Finally, look, all due respect to Christian Bale, who was great as Batman. I don't want a Batman that I can kick the crap out of, okay? I want a big, giant, menacing, dark knight, and that's Jason Momoa. So, Dan, what about you? What do you think?
I cannot possibly agree with you more about Jason Momoa. I think
really, I'm actually a little surprised. Awesome.
Oh my God, 1,000%. You know, this might be the only time this happens, but I 1,000% agree with you because he has the acting chops, he has the physicality, and he has that dark edge. That if they're willing to go kind of an edgy way with the Justice League, if they're not trying to go, you know, soft, as long as they're willing to go edgy and hard. 1,000%. I think he'd be great, and I also agree the likelihood of a cameo is pretty small for Man of Steel. But if they manage to pull it off, you know, a la the Avengers final after the credits sequence, it would be the hugest surprise ever. Because, like you say, the movie is another 4 years away. So if the studio somehow manages to pull that off, it'll be amazing. But
yeah, I wouldn't drop dead of shock if they had a cameo. I just don't think it'll be Bruce Wayne / Batman.
Yeah, Batman, right?
All right,
exactly.
What else we got?
Well, our second letter is from Ezekiel Juarez, and he writes, "Hi, I just started watching your show, and I can't wait to see it every day. You mentioned how Yoda might get his own movie, and I wanted to know if you guys think Disney would attempt to buy other movie rights. Just putting it out there, E.T., Indiana Jones, or any other successful old movies you guys might come up with. Do you think that it would be a good idea to have a prequel, sequel, spin-off from these, or any other movie?"
Well, first of all, it's important to understand this. Disney didn't buy the rights to Star Wars. They bought Lucasfilm. So they weren't just kind of nitpicking. But also, it's important to understand this. They didn't get Star Wars just so they could do a spin-off. To Disney, Star Wars is a goldmine. Because I guarantee you there are plans and designs already in the works for Star Wars Land at the various Disney theme parks. They are going to franchise this like right to the nines, like crazy. Plus, they have a plan for like 15 movies. They see this as an ongoing franchise forever. And I'm glad that they do. But I don't think they have any interest in picking up movie rights to some other things just to do a reboot or just to do one more sequel. I don't think that's in their plans. I think they bought Lucasfilm and vicariously Star Wars because they see this as a forever option as opposed to just a one-off. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think Disney can and will buy anything it wants ever. Like it will. I mean, if it really likes your dog, say goodbye to Fido because Disney will buy him. If they think they can turn a profit. I think the idea of doing stuff with Indiana Jones is interesting. I think if you got the right person in the lead role, we could see some more films being made without Harrison Ford. I don't think you can do anything with E.T. I mean, would he come back and suddenly he has a family? I don't know.
The
what
return,
we could do with that.
And he's like
the
pissed
return
off.
of E.T.
He's out for
I
vengeance.
now have a cell phone, so it's easier to phone home. I don't know what you could do with that. You certainly couldn't do a prequel to it. But if Disney comes up with some ways to make some money, they will buy anything and everything. Love you, Disney. Love you.
All right, well, listen, that'll do it for us. But listen, before you do anything else, and while I've got you, take a second and click that subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news, entertainment, our editorials, and, of course, our daily AMC Movie Talk show. And listen, if you want an audio-only edition of this show, just go over to iTunes and search for AMC Movie Talk. And listen to us on Stitcher Radio. Jump down into the description below and you can find links to those audio-only options. Also, make sure you follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AMC Theaters. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. And once again, click that subscribe button. I want to thank our guest today from thecinemasource.com, Dan Divvy. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you to our host, Gigi Dubois. Thanks, Gigi.
Thank you very much, John.
And thank you guys. Listen, folks, the important thing here is not what we have to say. It's what you have to say. Make sure you jump down to the comments section and leave your thoughts on any or all the topics that we discussed below. Thanks again for joining us. Until tomorrow, my name's John Campea for AMC Movie News. Bye-bye.